Welcome to Make a Difference with Phil Martelli. I am Jared Phillips. And Phil, we got some big news right off the bat to get to. Not exactly hoops news, but I would say if you're a fan of the Big Five, it is definitely newsworthy.
It is definitely newsworthy that the Pope is an American, that he went to Villanova. So just take everything and the ripples go out. So everybody out there has to think one thing. The Pope had to go to a game at the Palestra.
I would wager he's been to a few.
Probably been to a few games. He's probably been to some of those pizza places near Villanova. Campus Corner, I think, is the name of one. He's probably been in Kelly's at some point along the line. But the thing about the whole conclave, and I have to see if everybody out there was the same as me. So as this was happening and Pope Francis was sick, you had to go on, I don't know, Netflix or one of these stream or movie, the things that
Streaming
provide
services.
streaming services.
Yeah.
And you probably watch Conclave to get an idea. And then a classic, The Two Popes, really a great segment. And then to find out he's from Villanova. He cut grass in the St. Denis Cemetery, which now anybody who has a loved one buried at St. Denis should go up there and collect blades of grass, because if Pope Leo does these things, and what if he becomes a saint, you'll have a relic. You'll have a relic from the Pope in a blade of grass. Go for it. We all need help. If you follow his social media footprint, he was impressed, obviously, as everybody should be, with the Villanova 2 national championships, right? Spoke about that recently in a conversation. Baseball fan. Picture him following the White Sox. Can you imagine following the White Sox these last 2 years? Would be tough to do.
The patience of a saint, for sure.
And then his brother's reaction were great. Like the one brother's looking for him and said, "Why didn't you answer your phone?" And he returns the call. So really, really, really a big deal. And then there are other things that are going to be the byproducts for Villanova. Next year will be his 50th year from graduating at Villanova. They're going to invite him to be the graduation speaker. Father Peter, the president of Villanova, is a character, and he does not miss a marketing opportunity. But can you imagine inviting him to speak, and then the attendance at his 50th reunion? Everybody will be there, and there will be a number of urban myths, right? Urban myths, stories that are made up, but they have a connection with reality. So everybody's going to be there and say, "Well, I studied with the Pope," or "I did this with the Pope," or "We did community service," or "We stood at a basketball game together." He will single-handedly, by not being present, he will sell out that 50th reunion at Villanova. Just some of the things that I thought about when we talked about Pope Leo. So we wish him great success, and we wish all of us spiritual blessings from the Vatican.
My first thought was, all I can think of is Kevin Willard, new gig, Villanova. You get the Pope in your corner. He's probably dialing up those NIL donors like, "Hey, did you hear the news?" I feel like that's got to be huge for the program.
Well, it's huge for that whole university. And I did send a note out to Jay Wright that night and say, I don't know if it was true, but I made it up, a rumor that Lancaster Avenue had been shut down, and they had not seen a celebration like that on Lancaster Avenue since his 2 national championships. So Jay was good-natured about it.
Well, we have a terrific guest coming up on the show, a staple in the Philadelphia sports community, a legend, truly. And we got to get right into it.
Well, before we do that, we have to do the Martelli Minute. So Status Solutions Network is committed to making a difference by providing Alicia Law compliant safety technology to schools through a grant of use, ensuring that financial barriers never stand between students and proper safety. Each community has the power to create real change. Learn more at statussolutions.com. statussolutions.com, making schools safer for our kids. Worthy cause. The Martelli Minute. Learn to listen so you can listen to learn. There's a major difference between hearing and listening, seeing and looking. Listening and looking are more declarative statements. We want to work on that. Make showing up part of your DNA, and you will find others will show up for you when you need them the most. 2:00 in the morning, flat tire. Who do you call? You call somebody that you know is going to show up, right? Well, they have to know the same thing about you. Showing up must be part of your DNA. Open your hearts. Real simple. Pay attention to your opportunity to shine, to star. It awaits. So pay attention. Your opportunity to star and to shine awaits. But if you're distracted, you might miss it. Strengthen all of your relationships by simply asking, how can I help? Make every day a celebration of the women who lift, love, and nurture you, followed by a happy belated Mother's Day. But why we only get them one day is beyond me. It has to go way beyond. Why? Let's make every day a celebration of the women who lift, love, and nurture us. The Martelli Minute. And the Martelli Minute is connected with our guest. After I introduce this, make sure you ask me, how is the Martelli Minute connected with our guest? So our guest segment.
What this is. I need to hear this connection, but continue.
Guest segment sponsored by Shoot Basketballs, Not People. Gary Mills and his associates are changing Philly, one hoop, one kid at a time. We, all of you out there, can help with your time, your talent, and your treasures. Make a difference, guaranteed that we would make a difference with SBNP. Please help. Time, talent, treasures. We want to make sure that Shoot Basketballs, Not People is vibrant.
That's right. SBNP's mission is to reduce gun violence rates in the city of Philadelphia by empowering the city's youth through education and athletic programs that get them off the streets and ready for better opportunities. Founder Gary Mills and SBNP are making a difference, and you can join the fight by heading to joinsbnp.org to donate, become a partner or an ambassador as they look to use the power of hoops to enact change in our community.
And I understand that we're doing well, but we can do way more. We can do way more with making sure that our communities are safer and that Gary's mission carries on. So let's help where we can. Now time for our guest.
I'm excited about this intro.
All right. The greatest tribute you can receive if you come from outside Philly to in is the quote, "He's one of us." Our guest is one of us. Just for a moment, think about this. The statement, blank, changed whatever endeavor they undertook. Sister Mary Scullion, changed. Gary Mills, change. David Kelleher, change. Councilman Isaiah Thomas, changed. Gino Auriemma, changed women's basketball. And now today's guest. Today's guest, fill in the blank. They changed the endeavor that they were dealing with. Our guest took on horse racing, sports memorabilia, collusion with medical staff and professional teams. He didn't just go and start talking. He challenged institutions. Nominated for a Pulitzer Prize. In other words, our guest has skills and abilities. On a personal level, he took a chance on a college basketball coach who just wanted sports radio to say college basketball, St. Joe basketball once a week. He gave me that opportunity, and it blossomed into a friendship. How Angelo Cataldi is connected with the Martelli Minute is the greatest basketball entertainer is a guy by the name of Crazy George Shower. Crazy George is now in Dallas, but he used to be all over the place. He called me once a week for years and years and years and said, you need to get Angelo Cataldi to put you on the air doing your Martelli Minute. And I thought, nah, this isn't the right place or time. But here we are today doing the Martelli Minute, and we're being joined on our SBNP segment, guest segment, by, you said it, Philadelphia legend, Angelo Cataldi. Ange, thanks for joining us.
Phil, I don't know what the hell's going on with you. First of all this, you got the Pope, you got all this inspiring stuff. Then you bring me on. This is not, these topics don't melt together. What are you doing, Phil? And one other thing, Jay Wright, if the Vatican calls him with a job offer, is he going to turn them down the way he did the NBA?
Well, as I said to a Villanova administrator at a luncheon this past week, I said, I'm really confused because I always thought that Jay Wright was the Pope from Villanova. Now you got a real one?
That's right. Exactly. That explains their 2 championships. So, Phil, they had some help.
Holy mackerel. Lancaster Avenue has never looked like that, and that's all Jay Wright. I can't imagine what they're going to do now.
Oh, my
with
goodness.
A Pope. Holy mackerel. Oh, Ange, thank you. We'd like to start this segment by simply asking you this question. Explain to everybody out there your journey. How did you end up in Philadelphia?
Yeah, I grew up in Providence, Rhode Island. My father was a big Yankee fan because he loved Italians. So he loved Joe DiMaggio. So he became a Yankee fan. His love of sports, especially the Yankees, made me interested in sports. I grew up from the time I was a teenager. I wanted to be a sports writer because I had seen myself on the playing field and knew that would not be an option. So I went out and I got a job, and I ended up going to school, getting a great education, and ended up with a job offer in Philadelphia, where I covered the Flyers for a year and the Eagles for several years, some of the Buddy Ryan years. And then I got a job offer to go into sports radio. They offered me $20,000 more than I was making in the newspaper business. And I flushed 20 years of a journalism career right down the toilet and took the job and did it for 33 years. And here I am. I retired in 2022. And now I spend most of my time with my grandkids. That's the whole story.
Wow. Ange, the Philadelphia fan, could you describe, can you put them in a big box, but could you describe your impression of the Philadelphia fan?
Yeah, that's the number one thing in my career, that I got to be a part of this environment actively for all those years, because those people, Phil, as you well know, are not like fans in any other city anywhere. They are more passionate. They are more passionate on the negative end, and that's what you always see in the depiction of them nationally. And they're more passionate on the positive end. And that's, for an example, somebody needed a kidney, and he came on our show, and 28 people, not even knowing who he was, offered an organ donation. I mean, there are 2 sides to the passion of Philadelphia sports. But to me, if you're doing the job I was doing in the media, you can't get a better situation than to be writing for or talking to fans that are that passionate. And my bond with them, I wrote a book, Loud, a memoir that was basically dedicated to all those great people.
Angel, I feel like I want to give you a chance here to kind of flip that relationship a little bit to the host, right? I feel like these fans are so passionate, and I'm sure you heard it for years. These people would rag on somebody like you that's out there just trying to be honest, trying to be entertaining, maybe playing up a little bit of a character at times. Can you humanize the radio host for a second and let people know that like it is entertainment at the end of the day, and the hot take or the opinion that you have, there might be a little bit of truth to it, but at the end of the day, you're just trying to get people engaged and start a conversation.
It's very true that a part of that job is theatrical. That, you know, I always say to kids that are thinking about going into talk radio or podcasting or whatever, to take courses in drama, because you have to perform. It's a performance every day. So you're right, it is amplified. Nobody has as many strong opinions as I express it for years, but their opinion, their basis, their root is in reality. That's what I think. And then you kind of amplify it for entertainment purposes. But people have to understand, and they do understand in this city, that if you're doing that job right, you are holding all the people in the sports community accountable. All of them. That means even if Phil Martelli's in the Sweet 16 and he makes a call that you don't like and he's a regular guest on your show, you still got to take a shot. You got to put yourself in those seats where those fans are and react the way they do. And if you're speaking the language that they speak, even if they're on the other side of the issue, you make a connection with them. And that to me was how I lasted so long.
Most memorable interaction with a coach or player when you were a writer or ruling the roost at WIP, Ange?
One on each. When I was a writer, I covered the Flyers, and they had a coach named Bob McCannon, who was a hot. And Bob McCannon didn't like me because I had expressed the minute they gave me the job, I had just come in from Providence, that I wasn't highly knowledgeable in the sport of hockey. I had never covered it. So I relied on people to help me, including my co-host for many years at WIP, Al Morgani. And one day, Al had fed me a quote from the Boston Bruins coach or GM that Bob didn't like. And I walked into his office, and he had just been popping these little sugar donuts. So he had like a little rib of powdered sugar around his mouth. And he said, "Where'd you get that quote?" Harry Sinden was the GM. He goes, "Where'd you get that quote?" And I said, "It's what he said. What do you give me a hard time for? Why don't you call Harry?" And he goes, "I'll call Harry." And he gets up from his desk, and he begins approachingly, menacingly. He's going to come hit me. So because I'm a big guy, 6'8", I'm backtracking. I don't want any part of that. All right. And I just get out onto where the practice ice is in Voorhees, and he is about to grab me. And who knows at that point? And Tim Kerr, the biggest guy in the Flyers and one of the best people I ever covered, got a bit in between, grabbed him, pulled him away before either he got fined and suspended or I got murdered. So that was my interaction with the coach when I was a writer. They didn't like me. Almost none of them ever liked me because I held them accountable. I asked questions that annoyed the heck out of them. And then when I got to WIP, many years into it, I met a real jackass, Gabe Kapler, was the manager of the Phillies. And one night they had a play where Gene Segura did not run hard to first base when he hit a pop-up. And as a result, the defense let the ball fall, picked it up, threw to first to get Segura, and trapped McCutchen in a rundown. McCutchen, in trying to get back to first, blew out his knee, torn ACL, out for the year, had a big contract, like $14 million a year. And I had Kapler on the next day, and I said, "What do you do when a player on your team causes a major injury to another player?" And he said he resented the question. It was totally untrue. It did not happen the way I described it. I was like, of course, and I went to him, "Gabe, you know the game was on TV, right? You know we saw it. We know what happened." And it got ugly. It's on YouTube if anybody wants to hear it, because it went back and forth for 10 minutes. And it's still, all this other stuff I did, good and bad, mostly bad, but all this stuff I did in all those years, That's kind of like the thing that people ask me about within the first 5 minutes. What was it really like with Gabe Kaplan? I told him Gabe Kaplan lied more per word than any coach or manager in the 33 years I was on the air. And most of them lied some of the time. Kapler lied almost all the time. And it's pleasing to me to see that he no longer a manager.
I had an opportunity to sit in, and I'm going to hold back on what I saw for a full segment. Could you take people out there, everybody out there coaches? So you coached the morning show, and there might be somebody out there that's coaching their accounting firm, or a principal might be watching, or a young, but everybody coaches. Could you take us through your preparation for a show and also your style when you had to incorporate all of these different people into a 4-hour segment?
Well, Phil, first of all, it isn't that much different than being a coach. The only difference is when I had a bad show, I still slept well that night. Unlike you that wouldn't sleep at all if you had a bad loss. But anyway, yeah, it would start like the day before. You know, a show would end at 10. By 1, I'm on the internet starting to put together what amounted to a script, getting some topics that would connect with the audience right through bedtime at 6:30. I go to bed at 6:30. I get up at 2:30. I would be in the office by 3:30, and I have 2.5 hours to go through the games or whatever happened overnight in that night. And then I would create a script, literally a script. In the final years, every segment planned. I knew what I wanted to say in each segment. All the interviews, when Phil Martelli came on, I had all the questions set up before he ever came on. I never winged it. Maybe I didn't trust myself, whatever it was. I didn't wing it. We all met about 5:15. Rhea Hughes had great input into what was in each show. Joe Wechter was great. He was our producer. He put all the sound together, so we knew to do that. And Al, just before the show started, or before his part of the show, he did a 5:30 to 6 o'clock segment. We didn't talk to Al at all. Al found out what we were doing at the same time the listeners did. But he was a reactor and played to his strength. And the whole clue, here's why it's similar to coaching. You see what you got, and you play their strengths. That's the whole thing. Preparing Al wasn't going to help him. It was actually going to hurt him. It was better that he reacted in the moment. Rhea is a preparer, and she gave great counterpoints. Whenever I said something politically incorrect or stupid or whatever, she would call me on it. You know, everybody had a role in which their biggest strengths came through. And that's the way we did it for the last 25 years after all those people I just mentioned were part of our show.
Ange, I remember the day that I sat in and I walked in and I thought, well, come on, it's going to be 4 hours of talking with friends. It's going to be like sitting in Ray's in Kensington, and you throw out a thought and see where it goes. The second call that day, this is burnt into my brain. The second call that day talked about the Flyers goalie situation. It's what, 10 after 6 in the morning. And the guy goes on and on and on. Now think about this. The Flyers had come from the Stanley Cup Finals the year before. They were maybe 4 or 5 games into the season. And I said, don't worry about it. It's a long year. The guy hangs up. We go to break. Angelo looks at me. And very few times have I had people look at me. He looked me dead in the eye and said, don't do that again. We have to generate calls and conversation until 7 o'clock when the whole world connects. Then we're going to do Eagles from 7 to 10. He said, but we need these guys to engage in conversation from 6:15 to 7 o'clock. The backup goalie for the Flyers was the conversation. He was prepared. He had pages of notes, and I was like, oh, this isn't sitting at Ray's. This is way different. Ange, that was a lesson. I appreciate you for teaching me that.
I'm glad there's something there are things you can't say ever in sports talk. Although, from what I understand now, they're being said more and more. And maybe it's more honest now. I don't know. But either have an opinion or get the heck out of the way. All right. There's no wait and see attitude in sports radio. Right. There's no, it'll be fine. You give it time. He'll work it. No, you can't do that in radio, because today, in the moment, this guy wants a strong opinion, and the people listening, if they care at all, are going to want something beside, you know what, check back with me in a month. Let's see how he's doing in a month. You just can't do that. See, that's part of the job that changes away. When I was a writer, Phil, that was fine. Taking that kind of an attitude was fine. You could write a story about nobody's panicking here. It's time. He's going to need time to get adjusted to the new sport and all that stuff. But when you're on the air, every moment is important that you be as compelling as you can be. And sometimes that requires you to offer a strong opinion when all you have is so-so.
Every moment. That's what he said. We have a teacher here. Every moment. That is crazy. All right, Ange, here's my take. I need you to react. You're a first time, long time, but you have to react to this. Playoff baseball in Philadelphia is greater than the all-encompassing regular season football game.
No, not close. I hate the NFL preseason, but baseball players will beat that. But once, this year, Eagles, Cowboys, September 4th, Thursday night football, there isn't going to be a game, including the World Series, that will mean more to Philadelphia than the Eagles coming off a Super Bowl facing their hated rival. Football, with good reason. Football is more interesting than baseball because it's a better sport for this time in the world. Hard. There's still violence, not what there was 20 years ago, but it's still a violent sport, unpredictable, mano a mano, and Philadelphia loves it. You could take all the other sports together, and they don't match what the interest is just in the Eagles. And so, no, baseball playoff, especially when Bob Thompson is taking out Zach Wheeler when he's throwing a shutout after innings, got a pitch count of 110. If you're taking somebody out there, you're telling me it can't be that important. You go with the best guy in the best moment. And he got away with that one. If I was still on the air, I would have begun a movement then to have him fired.
This will come later in the week, but if you think about today, WIP has spent the whole day. We have a big baseball series coming up with the Cardinals coming in, winning 8 straight. The Phillies have won 11 of 14, or 12 of 15. They're a game and a half out of first place, the whole bit. But they have taken days to discuss the opener against Dallas.
Yeah, when you said that, I actually thought maybe that was your audition. Before the show, you said this is. I want to ask him about this. I said this is your audition for your slot on WIP, because this is a nonsense opinion. You're not even close. Angelo's spot on. I don't know what to tell you. You're wrong.
Well done.
You thought they should have talked baseball today? I think you were a great coach, because I was going to say earlier that you would have been a very good talk show host, but obviously I was wrong now in that impression, because that's ridiculous. No, I write a blog once a week, AngeloCataldi.com. I just wrote a major thing about the first game of the Eagles season. I didn't mention the Phillies. I didn't mention them. And they were on national TV last night because the Eagles ruled the city. Know that now. The Eagles are king, even when they're not winning Super Bowls. But when they win a Super Bowl, oh my God, it's not even close. You'd be canceled, Phil.
I had to invoke a name and tell you where this baseball thing runs through my veins. 1964, they come back from having blown the lead, 6.5 game lead with 12 to play. Most people don't recognize they won the last 2 games of that year. And our dear friend, our dear, dear, dear friend, 11 years old, me 10 years old, we walked to the airport and met the team when they came back from Cincinnati. Walking right down 70th Street in Philadelphia was Big Daddy Graham and I. We met the team when they came off the plane. So the baseball runs deep with me. When people say, "Are you over last year?" I go, "I'm not over 64 yet. Leave me alone."
Phil, I gotta say something here because I obviously was not here at 64. People, anyone who was alive when that happened and could follow sports, still will always reference that as the greatest disappointment of their sports fan career. And Phil, it's a fact. It left a monstrous mark on everybody's psyche. All I have to say is Chico Ruiz, and they go, "Oh my God, he's so home. Oh, he started the problem." And the only game in all these years, the only game that's ever been compared to it as an experience of total disappointment was the final game at Veterans Stadium when the Eagles lost to Tampa.
Oh,
Like
yes.
Joe Juravich. It's the only one. And anyone who was alive for both will tell you it's not even close. 64 is the greatest, maybe the greatest disappointment in American sports history. That's something. I'm honored to know you lived that with Big Daddy, no less. That's great.
Big Daddy and I.
But for the record, Angelo, that's the third time he's brought the 64 story up on this podcast. I think he mentioned it 2 weeks ago, even. Yeah, that he does not.
You're 2 generations away from it, but I'm telling you, it was a massive experience. It, in a lot of ways, you can argue, Phil, if you want to do like a big term paper show, that's what led the nativity that exists to this day in the way our fans cheer pro and con when they're watching a sports event. Honestly, because that feeling was handed down to the next generation, the next generation. You didn't even have to be alive to be affected by it.
I had a conversation with Ray Didinger, asking him, the great Ray Didinger, because his grandfather was in the bar business. I asked Ray this, if he thought every bar, not just his grandfather's bar, every bar had on the back wall their tickets that they had already bought. Because remember, it's only a World Series, no playoffs, no what is it now? Wild card, none of that. Just every bar in Philadelphia had their tickets framed and put on the back of the bar. Every bar, from North Philly to Morton, from Springfield Delco to Springfield Monco, every bar had their tickets. Ange, what do you think about that one?
Well, I'm going to tell you exactly what I think of it. For 10 years, I had the tickets on my wall, and I wasn't even here. I went to a sports convention. I was actually doing a sports memorabilia series for the Inquirer, and I saw them, and they were $200 for 4 total mint tickets that obviously were never used because they didn't get to the World Series. And I hung them up on my wall. And I kept saying to my wife, "Man, that's probably worth $5,000 now. Yeah, I made a great investment." And then I took him to a guy, and he said that they were fake. So I got rooked by 64 also, Phil, in a way.
What's the one pinch me in your career? You got an interview or an event and you said, "I cannot believe that this is the way that I'm making my living."
Yeah. I could think of 2 right off the top of my head. One was when I met my hero. Wyndham Franklin Plaza Hotel, early 90s. I'm working with Tom Brookshire, who's such a great partner to have when I started out in radio. And in walked 7 foot, 3/4 of an inch, or 1 3/4 of an inch, Wilt Chamberlain. And I got to meet Wilt Chamberlain. I shook his hand, and my entire arm was engulfed. And I was like a giddy schoolgirl. I was like, I couldn't get over how amazing it was that hero was right next to me. And and again, I was in New England. Everybody loved Bill Russell, he did was win 11 championships. I don't think that's that big a deal. But Wilt, who won 2, was my hero because I just loved him. I loved watching him play, and I got to talk to him and really just, you know, kind of like kiss his butt for 2 hours. But I got to talk to him when he was promoting the book.
Wow.
Ironically, the book was one of the real catches of the book was that he slept with 20,000 women, which, you know, we spent a few minutes on. And then the other one, Phil, this was the ultimate. Honestly, this is when I knew I should retire. When the Eagles won this first Super Bowl 7 years ago. That was just, my God, I came in for 2 months. You know how you have to write the script and all the stuff I described earlier? You didn't have to do any of that for 2 months. People were all on a cloud drifting over the city. And it was like, it was just so awesome. And it was like the culmination of everything I ever hoped for in the time I lived, that I could see the Eagles win a Super Bowl. And the fact that they won a second one last season, it felt great again. It was like, there's nothing like that. That's the ultimate. And I stole money those couple of months, Phil. I didn't have to work at all. People were so happy. It was great.
It did lift the mood here. It did lift the mood. That's for sure.
Angelo, the thing that I think is so fascinating about what you've done for so long, and Phil mentioned this, you know, you changed the game for sports talk radio in Philly among some other legends, and the game itself, though, has really morphed and changed, I would say, more in the last 10 years than it probably did in the previous 30, right? Where do you see all of this going? Obviously, you're lucky, right? You got out at a good time and were able to kind of ride off into the sunset. But where do you see sports talk radio headed? I know that is a loaded question.
Yeah, it's funny. 30 years ago, we just saw this clear path to do it that way and not worry about it. And in the last 10 years, honestly, in my last 5 years, I walked on eggshells because I was worried that something I might have said the first 5 years, if I repeated it the last 5 years, I would lose my job. I would be fired. There would be a cancel culture. The world completely evolved in that time. And you say to yourself, have I evolved as quickly as they did? You know, we used to use ethnic humor. We used gender humor, all the stuff that no longer is possible, rightfully. We probably shouldn't have been doing it then, but we didn't know any better. The world was changing. That's part of it. And then the podcast. Podcasts are changing everything because you know how many times in the first 20 years I was there, young people come up to me and say, how can I get into this business? I go, well, you got to start in a little town and you got to work at that radio station. You got to get tapes and all this stuff and then slowly build your way up. Now, that's it. You got a podcast. Do a podcast. You right now, you have asked terrific questions. Right now, I know that you could do that job too. I know you can. And the thing is, now you have a forum to show that. You don't have to do all that other stuff. So it's changing constantly. And I'm glad I'm out of it because there's no way my style would work. The way I trashed people, especially the first 20 years, the way I trashed them, if you did that now, the only reason I survived the last 10 years is I was grandfathered. People said, boss does it. That's his, you don't listen to it if you don't want to hear it. But now, if you brought somebody on now and he was trashing people the way I did, it wouldn't last. You couldn't do it anymore. It has totally evolved into a different thing than what I came in on. And left at the right time is I don't really want to be a part of pulling punches and worrying about the team calling people to try to get you fired and starting a protest group and all the stuff that goes on now. I wouldn't have handled any of that well. So I got out at exactly the right time.
Well, again, Angelo, thank you. Yes, this segment, this is great. More importantly, for the friendship over all these years, I'm just blown away that I'm able to go into my phone and say, no, this is a friend of mine. This is not just a guy from the media. This is a true blue friend of mine. So thank you for the friendship. And we always close with this question. Who's made a difference in your life, Angelo?
Wow. I'm going to go way back. Thank you. By my calculations now, given all the times you're a guest on my show, I owe you maybe about another 3,000 visits here. I'm going to go all the way back to high school because a weird thing happened. So I wrote this memoir, and in the memoir, in the acknowledgement part, I realized the person that set me in my way of going into the media and becoming a writer was my English teacher, Linda Youngren, was her name. And in the acknowledgement, I wrote saying, thank you so much. No one had encouraged me to write until I had you as my English teacher. You're a remarkable teacher. I finagled my way into having a second class with you as a senior because I wanted to take advantage of all that you had to offer me. And just thank you. And then my wife said to me, why don't you see if you could track the woman down? And we did. My wife really is a computer science major. She finds the woman. And I send her a letter. And I basically say to her, an email. I say to her, I just want to thank you. I acknowledge you in my book. And she emailed me back and she said, I can't believe this came out of nowhere. She had no recollection of me whatsoever. Right? It was 40 years, 45 years. And she said, I can't thank you enough for this. It's so amazing. And I said, and so now I started exchanging emails with her. And I went, how did you were so gifted as a teacher. How did that impact the rest of your life? She was in her 20s when she was my teacher. And she went, I guess we'll never know. Which was my senior year, not because of me, but she quit teaching, went into software development, and became a multimillionaire. Never looking back on what she was as a teacher. And I went, wow, seriously. Well, let me just tell you, you would have been a world-class teacher because you were for me.
Make a difference. Make a difference. That's what we're looking for.
That's it. Wow. See, now I'm inspiring people, Phil.
There we go.
How did you do this, Phil? It's impossible.
There we go. Angelo, thank you. Appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you.
Let's do it soon, Phil. Nice meeting you. Take care.
Thanks, Angelo.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate you. Well, that was just terrific. The stories, man, the stories alone. I knew he's gonna come ready with the stories, but come on. That was a lot of fun.
That was terrific. We can add that to the list next week when we talk Where Have We Been? We're going to talk about that. But for now,
where have you been, Phil?
Well, I spent 2 days with the VCU staff consulting and working on my ABCs of coaching. Not the X's and O's, the ABCs. What a wonderful place. Obviously, with Phil there as the head coach and Jimmy there as the associate head coach, but I had a chance to interact with their GAs and their head of analytics and scouting director. Major props to everybody involved at VCU, and thank you for the 2 days that I got to spend down there. I came home, threw my bag together, and took off for the Championship Productions Clinic put on by Tom McDonald and his staff in Atlanta. Got back from there and got to see the Delco Goats third grade team play an AAU tournament Saturday, the day before Mother's Day. But here's why I bring it up. The night before the tournament started, the team had practice. 10 third graders and my grandson who's in second grade. Practice ended. And I want to make sure I get this. Jim Fox is the coach. Jim Fox is the nephew of the legendary high school coach, Bill Fox, who unfortunately passed away at a young age from Father Judge. Jim Fox gathered his players together when practice ended and gave each of them a yellow rose to take home to their mothers to kick off Mother's Day weekend. So Jim Fox, I don't know where you came up with the idea. Ingenious. It's all that my daughter Elizabeth talked about. Do you know what this coach did? And I thought it was something like played zone instead of man. I didn't know. Then had a chance to go to Lanark Country Club for Mother's Day brunch. And boy, did they put on a brunch. I think there's probably still people there trying so many items. 24, 48 hours later, people are still there. So that's where we were. But where are we going?
Where are you headed, Phil?
Excited to be invited by Jason Fisher, the athletic director and state championship coach from Devon Prep, to speak at the Devon Prep Senior Athlete Banquet. They're going to get my A game, a couple of stories, but it's going to be about them, not let me give you the full corporate talk or the school talk. Anxious to do that one. Then invited by the Unionville School District, who we talked with earlier in the year, to come to their closing night admired leadership program that they run. Fascinating program. And I've been invited to go to Longwood Gardens for that event. Prep class of 72 will be meeting at Burke's Inn. Anybody out there from the class of 72? If you haven't responded, you can still get there. Burke's Inn, Wednesday night. There might be 35, 40 guys from our class, and we get there, and it's just great to see everybody and to celebrate their successes. Friday, trip to Lancaster. Spooky Nook, the athletic complex up there, 15 and under. There's a team coming down from Rhode Island whose parents can't make it, so they need a chaperone in the room with Phil Martelli. I'm going to spend time there. But halfway through the day on Saturday, I'm leaving and headed to the Malvern Retreat House to give a talk at lunch to the men of Malvern who are on a spiritual retreat. How faith has played a role in my career. Looking forward to that. Sunday, anybody out there in Delaware County, if you haven't, Sunday, command performance of The Little Mermaid at St. Mary Magdalene School, featuring, I think he's a starfish or something, Griffin Jeffries. It's his opening, and I said to him, break a leg, and he didn't get it. He didn't understand it. But that's where I'll be or where I'm going. But you don't even know this.
You're always dropping surprises on me here.
I have two concepts rolling through my head, but I need help. I need help on these. I need help. This is the party season. First communion, middle school graduations, 8th grade graduations, high school graduations, baby showers, all these kind of things. So there's one constant when people host a party, they always end up with excess food. So I've been processing this and saying, where do you take the food? Where could it serve others? So I'm trying to put together a plan. Reach out to local high schools, community service. Do they collect the food and then they take it to a food pantry or a kitchen, soup kitchen? Do you invoke the churches to collect food and then drop it off? That's rolling through my head. I experienced it recently at a party. Someone came to me with a tray of hoagies and said, what would you do with this?
Eat it.
I went through all of these ideas of how do you get in touch with people, but collect food from graduation parties. Let's say at Cardinal O'Hara High School, drop your excess food off. We'll deliver it to a soup kitchen. I'm working on that one. And the second one is Make a Difference is about ready to announce that we are going to become also the Philadelphia Coaching Academy. With this being the idea, CYO coaches, middle school coaches, coaches of younger players, we would provide them a clinic, one in Delco, one in Chester County, one in Montgomery County, and 2 in Philadelphia. 5 clinics where you walk in and say, how do I run a practice? Can you give me some drills? So that the younger players now are advanced because of their coaching is being advanced. So I came up with the idea, and then, oh yeah, Philadelphia Coaching Academy. Everyone wants to say, I went to an academy. So Philadelphia Coaching Academy, middle school, younger, CYO, 5th and 6th, boys, girls, and maybe the clinicians are myself and Fran Dunphy and a local high school coach. 3-hour commitment. Here's some drills. Take them back. Have a great year. And those that are planned, practices that are planned, are more beneficial to everybody. Better for the coach, better for the parent, better for the kid. Just 2 things that I'm working on in my downtime, because I am retired, as you know.
Yeah, you're cooking up quite a bit. We heard your schedule. I don't know where you're getting the time to put together these coaches clinics, but
so in the coaching
impressive.
clinic, I have written down all these things. Who would sponsor that? Who would sponsor that? Would the CYOs send their coaches? Would the school district send their middle school coaches? And would there be some kind of certification? You're now a Gold Star coach, or you're prepared to be a Gold Star coach. But just in some off time, just things I'm thinking about.
You got a lot of time on your hands.
Not as much, but like I said to Angelo, I'm big on ideas, and I love somebody else to execute them.
Yeah. It's that I think that's my favorite part is you have these wonderful ideas, and then you're like, okay, how do you do this?
That's right.
You know, I gave you the idea. You know, now run with it.
Oof.
I did have a story to share with you though.
Please.
Before we leave, and this one is obviously near and dear to my heart. The first Mother's Day, which we obviously just celebrated here back on Sunday. The first Mother's Day without my mother was obviously definitely a sad one. They all are. You know, they're always heavy on the heart a little bit. And my dad, Big Larry Phillips, had a wonderful idea. Execution maybe left a little bit to be desired, but the idea was there to get the boys together and do a little bit of canoeing down the Brandywine River, not too far from our house. You know, we pack some lunches, we get all set, nice, easy canoe ride, you know, down the Delaware for a few hours on Mother's Day. Beautiful day out. Like this will be perfect to kind of just take our minds off that day a little bit, spend some time together. Again, love the idea. What ensued was nothing short of absolute chaos. I guess it had rained a little bit in the days prior, so like the river was a little bit higher than usual, and this thing was running. And we get in these canoes, me, my dad, my younger brother Julian, who's probably 9 years old at the time, and my two older brothers Jason, Josh, and the other. And we get going down the Brandywine River, and all of a sudden, it's like we're whitewater rafting. Like there's like we're coming up to like we see waterfalls that we have to like steer clear of. My dad's like barking out commands like he's some type of like Navy general. Like we have to hop out of the canoe and grab it. We're like in waist deep water, like dragging it over rocks to avoid like basically flying off waterfalls. I mean, it completely turned into one of the most. I mean, you know, I don't want us to, you know, lose any viewership on YouTube, so I can't repeat what was being yelled and barked throughout the day, because I promise you it was profane. There was really no way around it, and it was kind of I mean, just a wild experience. And just the funniest part about it was, you know, just in the moment, just the chaos of it. And we finally get done, and we drop the canoes off at the end. We make it back in one piece, and my dad was like, "Oh, that was pretty fun, right?" It's like, let's just go golfing next Mother's Day. How about that? You know, just let's keep it simple, please. For the love of it. You know, I called him today and asked. I said, I'm gonna tell about the Mother's Day canoe story, and he goes, yeah, that was a good time. You guys just wimped out.
Well, to add to the story in my brain is one is for anybody young, go however you search for it, but Deliverance. I thought you would end up in a camp somewhere playing a banjo or something with others. And the second thing would be, and she was there, even though she physically wasn't there. Can you imagine the laughter coming from your mother if she was in the middle of that?
Oh my God, yeah. Well, first off, I know that she probably wouldn't have gotten in it. She would have said, "You guys have your fun. I'm out."
Because there's no one out there, no one who had a greater laugh than your mother.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, she lived for laughter.
The best would be that, personally, when she would start to tell a joke, but she would be making herself laugh so hard that she would then have a coughing fit and never actually get to the punchline, which was always funnier than what the punchline was ever going to be.
No one in the history of the world has ever laughed harder at their own stuff than your mother. From 8 years old on. Everything that happened to her was the funniest thing that ever happened.
Well, that's how you know she was funny, because if it was making her laugh and she couldn't get it out, then it must have been good.
Go.
Yeah.
There we go. Well,
another great one in the books. Our thank you again to Angelo Cataldi. What a fantastic guest. We got another one, a big one coming up. Do we want to drop it just yet, or should we leave it a surprise?
Not
okay.
Yet.
Another really good one coming up next week that we'll just maybe tease a little bit, but we don't want to spoil anything for you. Just keep an eye out for that. But a radio legend on the show today, which was a lot of fun. If you want to get involved with Phil and help make a difference, head on over to pnjmakeadifference.com. That is where you can tell Phil your story and get involved either in the classroom, in the workplace, on or off the court. That is how Phil has boots on the ground making a difference. We are at Make a Difference Pod on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, at Make a Diff Pod on X, Make a Difference with Phil Martelli on Facebook. If you're watching on YouTube, feel free to like and subscribe, and go ahead and give us a 5-star rating if you are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And please don't forget, please go and support our friends at Shoot Basketballs Not People. Gary Mills is doing unbelievable work there. That is joinsbnp.org. That is where you can get involved with Gary to be a donator, an ambassador, a partner, any way you can pitch in and help to curb gun violence in Philadelphia through spreading hoops. I mean, there's really no better way to do it than that in my mind. Phil, you got anything else for us?
I'm exhausted.
I can imagine so. The weeks you have, man, I don't know how you do it, but you keep coming back week after week, so I appreciate that.
You can count on me.